You're tuned into the Wade Borth Podcast, the place where clarity replaces confusion and real conversations open new doors for your financial life. Let's dive in and rethink what's possible. Hello, welcome back to the Wade Borth Podcast. Today, we have Kira's Consumer Corner, and today we decided to talk a little bit about college. And more importantly, what does college look like halfway through the freshman year? Not so much for the kids' point of view, but from the parents' point of view. So welcome, Kira. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks. Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit more about you today and it's sharing your experience because you're, like you said, I'm not there yet, but there's likely a lot of people listening that are there yet, or maybe they're gearing up to get there next year. And it's just kind of you don't want people to feel like they're alone in how they feel when they become empty nesters.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, we all know it's happening. And quite frankly, I'm excited to have it happen. I mean, that's the purpose. I think as parents, we want to do a really good job, get our kids ready to go, encourage them, have them go out in the big wide world, help them through interdependence. And that's a whole conversation we've had in the past as well. We want our kids to be, I don't want them to be independent of me, but think about how can we make them interdependent? Because in all reality, this is probably the crux of the conversation today. Somebody, and again, this coming from a parent of a single child, right, only child. I kind of laugh. We had a get together with a group of dads. We get together and our kids all played basketball together. And it's different when you have multiple kids versus like only children or, a set of twins or whatever it might be. It's different because like I always kind of say having an only child is kind of like cheating. The vase is broke. It's either the dog or the kid. So it's one or the other. So it's rarely, I kind of, jokingly say it's cheating. But there is some interesting dynamics that happen in that first semester. Or again, we're just through the first semester when we're recording this with my son going to college. And so I wanted to kind of share some thoughts around that. And again, from the conversations we're having from a dad perspective and really from a family and dynamics perspective. So again, you'll be there and you're going to go, oh yeah, that's what Wade was talking about. So
what would you say has been the hardest thing, going from having a kid at home to being an empty nester? Because obviously it's a shell shock the first time it happens and through the first semester, right? Then you kind of get on a little bit of a routine of every 6 months or so, they're likely home for a little bit and you kind of get back into your home routine. But what would you say has been the most difficult thing?
Well, I think it really depends. And I'm going to go back to our discussion with our dad's group that we're having. It depends on where your kid's going to college. So in the dad's group, there's like kids going to college right in town and they see him maybe every other day or at least every Sunday for sure because they come over back for dinner because they're right in town going to school. And so they're away, but they're not away. It's like a sleepover extended. That's about what it looks like. And then my son is he's a little bit further away. So it's an hour and a half away. So he's not going to pop over for a half hour just to say hello. But, I still have the ability to have interactions with him and we have a chance to go do some outdoor activities. We like to hunt. So this time of the season, it's been really good because we've been able to connect on a regular basis. And then one of our friends, his son's, 2,000 miles away. And we have one of my son's high school classmates went to Hawaii and is going to school in Hawaii. And so you see him once, at the end of the semester, right? You get to see him on a regular basis. Even Thanksgiving isn't that way. There's a bit of emptiness that you have to deal with. And I kind of jokingly say that, did all the work, made him into a good human being. And now just when he becomes very valuable around the house and, a good partner and a good asset, he decides to leave. It was like, it's funny because we do a lot of things together. And also I'm like back to doing things myself. And so I've had this 4 years probably where he's been tremendously valuable. And so just that adjustment has been, I don't have him here to shovel the driveway because we have snow. Mm-hmm. But emotionally, it's a little bit different because you're used to having, even though you think, I don't hardly even talk to my kid, you don't have that even that short conversation and find out what's going on in their lives because it's that interdependence that we want to strive for. So I think we've done a good job of preparing ourselves and preparing him to continue that interdependence, but yet giving him the ability to grow and become himself. So hardest thing, there's a lot of hard things, but it's probably more, I'll tell you just from Lynette's standpoint, it's like, how do we prepare meals around the house? How do we, it sounds like the dumbest thing in the world, but when you have an 18-year-old eating machine, you can prepare pretty much anything and then it's all gone. And now it's like, again, we can leave that So I know it's interesting, just all the different dynamics because you're used to having that person around for so long, and it is good. Like I said, I'm excited for him to grow, become his own man, but yet I do miss the interaction on a daily basis. And again, it might not be more than just at dinner time having, how was your day and what would you do? That part is probably the hardest part I find, not having him here on a daily basis. Even though we can call him, we can talk, it's not the same thing. Seeing a smile, seeing if he's, giving me crap or whatever it may be.
So now I'm going to flip the conversation a little bit and you talk about interdependence, right?
Yeah.
So given what you do for a living, let's pivot to the financial aspect of it too. So obviously, you guys have your own understanding as far as finances and, him going to college and everything like that. But how does the interdependence translate from you making sure they're eating, they're doing their laundry, they're, making good decisions and taking tests and doing homework if they have them and things like that. But how does it also translate to a financial, interdependence?
What's interesting, because this is now we get to take a step back a little bit and say, how has the lessons that I've been talking about, and again, anybody that's got kids that are that age, I don't think they heard a word I said, but they do hear you. I'm going to tell you they hear you, because now it's my opportunity to take a step back and see how he reacts to different things going on. And sometimes the hard part is not reacting, right? So it's like, oh, that's interesting. And then letting it play out and see how it happens. And because again, you want them to build up their own calluses, but yet you don't want them to find bodily injury, right? So where's the balance of having that happen?
Right.
You do want them to build it up. And from a financial standpoint, it's like, hey, do you realize what the cost of college is? Did they actually see, we still write a check, right? So, hey, do you see what the cost of this is? And then are you getting the value from that? So there is a point where I think it's really good to have them being part of the discussion about what is the cost? How do we finance it? Again, we finance it through a policy loan, and we finance it through, hey, we're going to have this, and when you get back out, you're going to want to repay that loan, right? So that discussion is so important because now he has ownership. And again, this is the interdependence. It's ownership of it, and it's I don't call it a debt, but a responsibility he has, not back to Wells Fargo, but back to our family. Mm-hmm. And that's the interdependence we try to bring into when we go to college. And, there's a balance here between not spending anything and living like a hermit, and also saying, hey, understand that you still want a standard of living, even though there might be cost involved with that. So there's just that balance, but it is an opportunity for us to take a step back and say, well, yeah, how are the lessons that we were teaching, how are they being absorbed and how they're being applied? And so it's fun. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but sometimes, like I said, we need to let our own, I think this kind of conversation you and I have had multiple times, like we need to let our kids and we need to let people kind of make their own bed a little bit, make some mistakes when the outcome isn't tragic. And then, okay, what do we learn from that? Because sometimes insulating them all the time from all mistakes can be a mistake in itself.
Yeah. I had another mom share with me, we were talking about, just kind of preparedness in general as it pertains to life. And, if you think about it, back in the day, I'd leave the house, I'd go ride my bike around the neighborhood, no phone, I'm by myself, like no tracking, like nothing. I'm just out for hours riding my bike, right? There's no way to communicate with me. There's no way to come find me unless somebody wants to hop in their car and go. And so now the question is, I have an 8-year-old and my mind goes to, okay, at what age do I let him go do the things that I was doing like that? And what she expressed to me was that, she has been told that we're so concerned with the physical safety of our children and, the horror stories that you hear about 8 to 12-year-old children, but we're not preparing them to protect themselves from a digital standpoint. Are we teaching them about things online that they might find or that they might somehow be sucked into? And I think it all goes to, it's just a whole preparedness in general. So much is different, but at the same time, you want to protect them, but you want to give them wings to fly. And it's funny in hearing you say all this stuff too. It almost sounds like everything in life can kind of correlate to a financial preparedness, if you will, which is a whole other conversation I feel like we could go down a rabbit hole with. But everything in life correlates to some sort of financial preparedness. Do you need it? Do you have to have it? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that?
Well, I think we've talked plenty on the podcast about this idea of the 5 areas conversation, right? And what does abundance look like in all those 5 areas? And that's part of the conversation, is that if we have abundance in our financial world, how does that spill over to our spiritual world? our occupation or college world, our family world. I mean, so they all tie together. And quite frankly, I think it's foolish to think that you would be able to do one without the other. Because if you did, I think you end up with a real flat spot in this wheel. So we have to make sure there's abundance in all areas. And a lot of times what we do financially will lead the way because, again, that's just what makes the world go round. We can have a good, sound understanding of finances, but if we don't apply it to our personal or anything else, then it becomes this real flat spot on the circular wheel. So I think that's why, we can take the same thing. We can take and say, oh, maybe my family upbringing, my family abundance, what that looks like needs to apply to my financial world. So I think it goes back and forth. I don't think it goes from one to the other, but I think they go back and forth.
Yeah, and everything can also just kind of relate to preparing yourself to be an empty nester too, right? You have to prepare yourself. Just as much as you have to prepare your child to leave the nest, you have to prepare yourself to have an empty nest.
Absolutely. Man, there's such truth to that. With an only child, you get one bite at the apple. You get one swing at that adventure the first time out. And what you don't know, your experience is going to be your experience. And how you react to it is going to be unique to you, just like everything else. And I think we were fairly well prepared, but you just don't know sometimes. You want to go in and fix it as quickly as you can, but this is our opportunity to grow as individuals and as parents,
right?
To say, how do we empower him to fix his problems versus going and fixing it? I think as parents, I'm a fixer, so I like to hop in and I like to fix things. They're very resilient. They're much more resilient than we probably ever give them credit for because we think they need us.
It's just because at the time they don't know any better. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They're sheltered enough from the things that they don't know any better. Yes. That's what makes them so resilient.
Well, I think part of the resilience too is like we think they need us more than they actually need us. And so it's our own personal, like, oh, I can bring value there all the time, or I'm gonna solve their problems. And they're like, back off, I can solve my own problems.
Yep. But
that's almost a little hurtful. Like, oh, you don't need me? Oh, ouch, I hurt so bad.
It always feels good to be needed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. I just hope that wherever they go, if it's going to college or just leaving, getting out on their own, building their own family. But it's the foundational stuff that we teach them that is so valuable. If we can give them a good foundational understanding of who they are, empower them to make good decisions, and then trust that they will. Trust that they're, if they're sound spiritually, mentally, show them how to grow in abundance. I think if we do all those things, then we've given them the foundation and we give them the bedrock, and then what they build is theirs. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned is like, I feel pretty confident, that we've given them a good foundation. We haven't been perfect by any stretch of imagination, but it's been very helpful to say, here's a good foundation. Now you go grow and be interdependent. Allow us to come in when you need it. But the hard part is we have to wait for them to ask versus us being able to tell. I think that's the biggest transition we're making right now.
Well, sounds like your first semester of empty nesthood has gone well then.
He finished with finals this week as we're recording this. And so it's perfect timing to talk about it.
I think we should.
All right, Kira, thanks so much for allowing me to share this adventure. Thanks for asking about it. It was fabulous. I look forward to the day when Michael gets to do it.
Yeah. I'll be a mess. What is this? 10 years? It'll be.
Yeah. You'll be a mess, but you'll be a solid mess. You won't be a hot mess. How's that?
This is true. Yeah. This is true.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
Always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Grateful to have you tune in today. If you're ready to rethink your financial journey and take the next step, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, stay curious and stay in control.